Welcome to episode number 3 of the Culture, EVP and Leadership podcast. We're all the way in North London today with Neil Coker from Barnet Southgate. My name's Guy Walker, I'm from Dovetail and Slate, and welcome to episode 3. Neil, introduce yourself.
So yes, thank you, Guy. Thank you for inviting me. My name's Neil Coker. I'm the Chief Executive and Principal here at Barnet and Southgate College.
Brilliant. So let's jump straight into it. Can you describe the values and culture of Barnet and Southgate?
It's interesting and timely because we've done a huge amount of work on this over the last sort of 12 to 18 months, and that's been in tandem with developing our new strategic plan. So we've literally launched in hard copy our strategic plan this week. So as part of that, what we've done is a lot of work on culture, values, people. And the starting point for that really for me, and I come back to it frequently, is that if as an organisation we want to achieve our ambitions that are laid out in that strategy, if we want to continue to improve what we do, if we want to make sure that consistently we provide exceptional learning experiences for our students, then our staff are our most valuable asset in delivering that. And for our staff to perform at their very best, what I want them to feel that they're our most valuable asset. So that comes through culture, it comes through values, it comes through behaviours. So we've done a lot of work on what is that, and but also very much recognising that you can't define your culture and then wait for everybody to get to it. So I've been very, very open. We've talked about that a lot. So we've focused our energy on behaviours.
Yes.
And from a values perspective, we looked at, we had a set of values and behaviours, and a lot of organisations operate in that way and describe values, behaviours like that. But they can sometimes be either too complex or too mundane that they don't actually tell you anything. So we ended up through a deep, broad, extended consultation with staff with what we've called a set of guiding principles. So when we talk about describing the values at Barnet and Southgate College, what we talk about really are our guiding principles. And our guiding principles are very much designed, and it's very clear. It says our guiding principles, this is how we behave and how we interact. It's very simple. And if we behave and interact in the way that our guiding principles set out, that will inform and drive the culture for the organisation. So the culture comes from those interactions and those behaviours.
So you've brought it out through, I'm sure, a series of different methods, but rather than prescribe something down into the organisation, you've gone through the organisation and brought out the principles that they want to embody.
Yeah.
So that they're connected with it, right? Because prescribing culture doesn't work. Telling people a certain set of things doesn't work. They have to connect and build it through.
Absolutely.
How long did that process take?
We've been doing the consultation on all of this for 12 months.
12 months. That's a hell of an investment of your time.
Yeah, but but also these things, it's not just about time, it's about giving these things time to breathe so that people can really engage with them well, and then coming back to them after a period of time. If you rush it through, again, there's always that sense that you're going to create something for the sake of getting the brochure out.
Yeah.
You know? And this isn't about getting the brochure out. This is very much about creating an environment in the organisation that people feel that they've contributed to and that they can really strongly align themselves to. And, there's nothing new here. We've all seen strategies and values and behaviours that's been developed, often top down. Here we are, here it is, everybody. And then it sits on a shelf and gathers dust and business carries on as usual. We've been really keen to make sure that it's sort of lived and breathed in the organisation and done a lot of work on how we embed all of this. Because if you don't do that, you're creating something that doesn't initiate and lead to change. And I think it's really important that we move forward and things change. And that's, again, not on the basis that there's anything particularly wrong in what we're doing. I use the phrase a lot. And I talk a lot about what got us here won't get us there. And in the middle of that sentence is a moment of recognising the need for a shift and for moving the dial. But I think the reason that phrase works for me, what got us here won't get us there, is that it recognises that what got us here was pretty good.
Yes.
We've done some really good things. Our starting point is a strong one. So it celebrates what you can see in the rearview mirror. Rather than dismissing that, but then also says, actually, if our ambition is this, things have got to move. So you've got a rationale for change in a very, very simple format there. So we've then worked really hard on in order to deliver that change, what is the environment that we need to create? What is the culture that we need to create? What are the behaviours and interactions that are important to us? And through all of that, so yes, it's taken a long time, but I think it's taken a long time because it's important and because we want it to lead to us doing something differently in order to achieve the ambitions that we've got. And those guiding principles, again, they're not designed for everybody to remember them and repeat them, at the drop of a hat. They're much more in depth than that.
Neil, that sounds to me like you spent a lot of time not just creating it, not just manufacturing it. We've put it together, we've consulted. I think the most important part of culture isn't really putting it together. We move to the second phase, which is the embed phase. So now what we've got to do is get it into the organisation. Can you talk me around the plan to embed it and then support it so that it lasts?
There needs to be constant reference. So I talk frequently about these guiding principles. And I will come back to the fact that because we've consulted so widely on it, I think by the very nature of that, there's more ownership and more recognition of it. So it's not a new thing that we're just landing on people's laps. It's something that people have been engaged in and involved in over an extended period of time. So it's not designed. They're not designed to be memorable. That's the other thing. So there's an element of this where we're about to create some visual collateral around it, so that the guiding principles exist in staff rooms, in work areas, and that sort of thing. So staff can see them. Now, equally, there's over a period of time that just becomes wallpaper, and we just walk past it. But I think it's important to have that and to do that. And I talk a lot about how the fact that if our guiding principles are visible in the organisation and in areas where staff collaborate and consult and work together and engage, then they can always be referred to if you need to. So I think there's another important part of embedding it for me, which is the guiding principles and how we behave and how we interact in the organisation, and this new set of guiding principles will only make a difference if they're used to inform and therefore change behaviour as and when behaviour needs to change.
Interesting.
So in order to do that, you need to be able to refer to them if you find yourself in an environment where people aren't adhering to our guiding principles. Now that in itself is a culture and an openness and a bravery in the organisation to be able to say to anybody at any level, me included, actually I'm not comfortable with the way this conversation's going. I'm not comfortable with the way this meeting's heading. I don't feel, in terms of our guiding principles, that my voice is being heard. I don't feel that there's that level of inclusivity. I don't feel that my perspective on this particular thing is being listened to in its fullness. I don't feel that that there's a positivity in the room. I feel that positivity is lacking, and I'm genuinely coming to this conversation wanting to add something valuable to it. So people need to be confident enough to call that out, and within those guiding principles. And our guiding principles, as I say, they're not designed to be something that people remember. There's 10 of them, and they come around the very basic words that at Barnet and Southgate College, and in terms of the way we behave and the way we interact, we are united, innovative, curious, inclusive, transparent, respectful, positive, responsible, measured and proud. And the kind of flow of the words almost works in itself. But I'm reading that to you off the sheet. So there's no expectation that people just can memorise this. And often we use that as some kind of test. Well, can people recite your values? Well, no, but I'm not expecting them to. And actually, maybe there's a sweet spot here. Maybe there's a point where we don't worry about whether people can recite our values, or in our case, our guiding principles. Maybe the sweet spot is that, and we don't do this, but maybe we will. 3 months into employment of a new member of staff, we sit down with them and we say, what does it feel like to be at Barnet Southgate College? And if they say, well, actually, I feel that I'm part of a team. I feel that I feel welcome here. I feel appreciated. I feel that I can share my thoughts with people, and people will listen to my ideas. I think generally there's a positive environment around the college, and people thank me for the stuff that I do, and therefore I feel quite valued by my manager and my peers, and I really enjoy being here. They don't need to recite the guiding principles. because they're there. They just exist in the organisation. They're just described in different ways.
It's the DNA. So you've picked some really interesting points there that I want to pick up on. So the first you've mentioned is talking about the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. So there's a phrase used in management, and it's like, if you see a bit of rubbish on the floor, you pick it up, you put it in the bin. If you see someone upset or in a difficult space, you stop and you support them. If someone isn't being listened to, you say, hang on, 2 seconds, they've got something to add. And that becomes and embeds what you've really neatly touched on there. And you use the word strongly, feeling, quite a few times there. Because culture isn't a thing. You can't prescribe it. It doesn't exist. If someone just says describe culture, it's a set of behaviours and values that drive a feeling. What does it feel like to work at Barnet Southgate College? You've touched on strongly there. My question is, normally values do have to be remembered. Lots of people have done some interesting things, but other people have done what you've done, which is make it a feeling, make it something else. What's the reasoning behind that?
Good question. I mean, on a personal level, in terms of kind of taking a leadership role in the development of our strategy, but also as part of that, as I say, the kind of culture and how we do things underneath that strategy. On a personal level, I've kind of embraced the opportunity to learn massively here. Because why wouldn't I? I've done a lot of reading, a lot of listening, but also a lot of conversations, and I'm a big believer in this. The answer to most of the challenges, the problems, and the goals that we set ourselves are out there somewhere. You just got to go find them. So I talk to a lot of people. I've visited other colleges. You have conversation with one person about what you're trying to achieve, and then they're well connected, and they'll say, actually, you need to go and talk to so-and-so because they're probably just a few months ahead of you in terms of what you're trying to achieve, but they've gone through that journey. So it'd be really good for you to have a discussion with them. And I know you've spoken to Janet already at Nottingham, and that was an introduction there where we really connected. Partly, I think, because we were both aligned in terms of how we operate and what it is that we want to achieve, and some of our priorities, and our kind of personal values, if you like, and how they move. But also what we were trying to achieve organisationally. There was a lot of synergy there. So I've embraced the opportunity to learn through other people, through listening to stuff, through reading things, but also just genuinely just magpieing stuff from other people and going, okay, let me, Google, culture, organisational strategies, from outside of the FE sector, all that sort of thing. Just look at what all different people are doing, but then bring all of that and bring it to the table. So, I spent a lot of time with the leadership and management team here, working with them on gathering their views. There's 50 odd people in the room when I get our full leadership and management team together, and what a powerful room of people that is in terms of the diversity of thinking, their ideas, their different perspectives on things. So I can float stuff in the room with air and get such rich conversations and feedback back. So we did a lot of that. And then from that, narrowed things down and then went out to the wider staff. So when we got to this point of these kind of guiding principles, there'd already been a lot of background worked on it, and people were engaging well with it, I suppose. So there was a sense that this feels right. It's got legs.
And I can't see which one you get rid of, right? That's the thing. You get up to, maybe you start with 100, you get to 50, and you work your way through.
Yeah.
I would say that, one, you live all of those values. And two, you can't get rid of any of them?
No, and again, the consultation was as I say, extended and deep, and there were a lot more. They were much more wordy. So each of those individual words has got a sentence underneath it. We didn't manage with all of it. Tried to keep them to a single sentence. And again, not so that people can remember it, but just so that there's an easy point of reference as and when you need it. But you're right, it was much bigger when it started, and we narrowed and we narrowed and we narrowed. And there does come a point with this where you do have to go, right, stop now.
Yeah.
Because and I'm an awful wordsmith. Maybe I don't know, but I'll constantly change these things. Every time you revisit and proofread something, you'll tweak it and change it again.
But you have to say, this is it.
This is it now.
And you can't tinker with these things. They have to be embraced.
and they've got to stand the test of time. These are going to be here for a long time. But hopefully, that it's clear. The language that's used is clear. Everybody can engage with it. You can see it. If it's in the staff room, you can see it clearly. You can refer to it. Even if you're just passing, you might just take it in. So one of them is curious, and underneath that, we question, we listen to understand, we're eager to learn. I can engage with that. It's a simple statement. And we're responsible. We take responsibility for the impact of our actions, and we never pass the blame. It's in simple language. Inclusivity, and we've all seen big statements about inclusivity and all of that sort of thing. What we commit to in terms of the way we behave and interact is that everyone is welcome. We appreciate everyone, and we challenge discrimination always. Simple.
Perfect. There's a really interesting part of embedding values is you have to create systems to bring them into the organisation and to put them front and centre. There's a really interesting thing that a few businesses have piloted recently that I think you might want to hear, which is every month they ask the staff to vote on who has embedded those values and why. And the person who receives either the most votes, or you can use a panel of your SLT if you need to, they award a gift voucher or a piece of recognition for that person that upheld that award. And in terms of an embed strategy, that's a massively powerful way to land these into the organisation. We call them standard stars within Talentia Group, but you can call it anything. But I can see how these might relate back to a set of behaviours. I can feel them. And one of the things that I find really interesting, one of the challenges that many CEOs have faced is multi-campus, multi-site. So we've got a really strong set of values here, but does it differ from Barnet to Southgate? So how are you combating that? And is it a thing for Barnet and Southgate?
So, so we're across four campuses in Barnet and Southgate College, and within that, as I mentioned, there's 50 odd leaders and managers, 54, 55 leaders and managers. And when I've spoken to all of them about this and about this culture, we've had this sense that from a cultural perspective, we've got what we're working towards through behaviours that drive culture, and what we're working towards, which is the culture at Barnet and Southgate College. Okay, but equally, what we can't dismiss is that when I've got 54 people in front of me, we need to recognise that potentially there are 54 subcultures in the room. So then we did a lot of work around what's our responsibility as leaders and managers, because as a leader and a manager, and what I've kind of learned, over time, and sometimes it can be quite a frightening thing, is that, like it or not, people pay attention to what you say.
How you role model, I think.
And how you model things and how you behave. So we talked a lot, and I've talked a lot with leaders and managers here about the fact that whatever we're trying to achieve in terms of culture and values and behaviours and guiding principles and all of that sort of thing, and how we interact with each other, how we individually as leaders and managers, how we show up on a day-to-day basis, how we act, how we react, how we interact, how we respond to situations, the things we say, the language we use, sets the tone, and that's really, really important. So, did a lot of work on that with the leadership and management team around influence and positive influence, and trying to recognise that if this is what we want to achieve, and we acknowledge there are subcultures, so this team's got a culture, this team's got a culture, this staff room's got a culture that's different to this staff room, because that's driven by the behaviours of the people within it. The individuals that can influence that positively the most are the people who lead that team, because you're modelling behaviour, and people observe and watch often what you do and how you behave and how you interact and how you respond. So when something, and sometimes it's the small things, when somebody comes in and goes, that's just typical of this place, can't believe that, it's just, you won't believe what I've just said. And the manager goes, oh no.
Reinforced
straight away. You kind of dived into that problem, rather. One of our guiding principles is that sense of curiosity, but also of being positive and assuming positive intent and seeking to resolve problems and challenges, not contribute to them. So in that scenario, and people do come with very genuine things that are not good for them in that moment, And what you have to do is you have to take that, because that's genuine. They're not making it up.
No,
Nobody's coming to the root. It's something's not right for that person in their working environment in that moment in time. And actually, if we've got a culture where you should feel confident and comfortable to call that out, then we've got to embrace that. So as a manager, you've got to take it, you've got to hear it, you've got to listen to it. But equally, you've then got a responsibility in terms of developing that positive culture, of being curious about that. And often when you're faced with things that somebody thinks is really, really bad, a really poor thing, if you step back for a moment and just go, really? That's really interesting. I'm really curious about that. Tell me some more, and get underneath it and genuinely listen. Then sometimes what you find is that what feels like is this bigger problem is potentially not. And then as a leader, if you narrow that down, then you can actually contribute to the solution. Then you can't solve this. No.
And you can recognise different cultures and different elements of culture across the organisation, different pockets. So my question for you is, one of the things that waters down culture is, well, they get away with this, or that happens over there. How do you hold a certain level of standard? Is there a base that you accept where this is how we uphold the standard, but you can go higher? Because one of the things we see across lots of organisations is they accept lesser, and then the standard is lesser across the board, and we go into a bit of a spiral. So do you see any of that, or have you made it clear there is a base layer of standard that we have to work with? How do you recognise those cultures and then improve upon them?
So I think the one thing to touch on with that is and it's probably going a bit further into how we embed these guiding principles and the culture and our strategic priorities, is that we've acknowledged that leaders and managers are going to be really key in this, and that's not saying that they're driving it, because it's driven by everybody and needs to be upheld by everybody. But leaders and managers are in a position where they can influence. And in a session with recently, we talked about transactional influence and transformative influence. And as a leader and manager, you need to kind of gravitate between the two of those things. Sometimes you just need a transaction, you need something to be done, and another time it's more about transforming and moving things forward. But we've also talked about how as leaders and managers, we're in a people-driven organisation. So actually, your ability to connect and engage and understand and work with and get the best out of the people that report into you is absolutely vital if we're going to achieve what we want to achieve. So one of the things we've done is we've embedded the principles in our performance enablement, performance management process. So we've redefined what that looks like. So people sit and have a conversation about, these are our guiding principles. Give me some examples of where you actively, continually, consistently live by these. And then let's reflect on moments where perhaps you haven't, and what was the environment at that time, what triggered that for you, and what have you learned from it. So we kind of embed it in that sense.
You meet each person where they are, by the sounds of it. You take each person as an individual. You take who they are and you align them as close as possible to the Barnet Southgate standard.
Absolutely, and that's important as well. We are individuals, and we need to recognise and value the individual and the individual's contribution. But in terms of delivering those standards, which I think was your question, they're embedded in that performance enablement thing. So we talk about them. Are we meeting those standards as an individual? I'm going to have a conversation about the extent to which I am or I am not meeting those standards and delivering against those behaviours. So that's important. But I'll come back to that very, very simplistic phrase: what got us here won't get us there. And that's where we go, actually, okay, in order to be exceptional in everything that we do, we've got to step up, and that's throughout the organisation. That's all of us, and it's all of us recognising that. And it's easy for me to say, getting a whole organisation engaged in continual improvement is really tough. But that's what we need to do. We all need to recognise that if we continue to do what we've always done, and there's the cliche,
it's a good book, the
cliched phrase around that you'll always get the same thing. But we want, we've got an ambition that we've defined collectively as an organisation, which is in the new strategic plan. And if we want to achieve that ambition, that's somewhere that's somewhere over here. We're not there yet. Yeah. So if we carry on doing what we're doing now, we're not going to get there. But what we're doing now got us to where we are, and that's pretty good. So it's that step up, and I think that narrative is being driven through the organisation through various conversations, but none of which are kind of dragging people forward through something. It's all very much about, we want to continue to do the very, very best for our students that are with us now, our students that are going to be with us next year, and our students that are going to be with us in 5 years' time. In order to do that, we as staff that in the organisation need to continue to reflect on what we're doing, celebrate and build on what we're doing well, recognise the things we could do slightly better, and put some effort and energy into that.
I absolutely understand, and I can see why it's a choice for them. They're coming with you, and they're coming on this journey. So now I'm going to ask you a challenging question, and it's not a trick question, but it might feel like a trick question. Who's in charge of culture at Barnet Southgate College?
Who's in charge of culture at Barnet Southgate College? You know, the answer is going to probably seem obvious, and it is everyone's in charge of culture. I mean, there's an interesting thing. Who's in charge of anything at Barnet Southgate College? We're all responsible and accountable for individual things that we need to deliver. You know, and I take my responsibility and my accountability really, really seriously, because the organisation deserves that from me, and how I serve the organisation and the people within it is really, really important. So I take that very seriously, and as part of that, I suppose it's placing huge importance on the things that we're talking about, on people, on culture, on our guiding principles and therefore values, and you know, how we behave, how we interact, and therefore how successful we are as an organisation. But everybody's in charge of culture at Barnet and Southgate College, because everybody influences it. Positive, because everybody is it.
Yeah.
You know. But then there's a difficulty in that, because, and this is why we've avoided going, the culture at Barnet and Southgate College is. Because, you know, again, there's a phrase that, you know, it's kind of, culture's like the wind. You know, you kind of know when it's there, but you can't see it. You know, you can't touch it.
It's a feeling, isn't it? It's a collection.
So everybody's in charge of culture, because everybody influences it, everybody contributes to it, everybody changes it, moves it in the right direction, and everybody's got a right to be part of it.
Yeah, I think everyone that comes through it, it's almost, you know, when you walk through a door of a building, this building in particular, right? The heating's on. You walk in, and it's that straight away in your face. It's embedded. It's there. It's there when you apply for a role. It's there when you work there. It's there as a student. You feel the way the staff engage with you. So I think you're probably quite right. Everyone. But your focus on it is incredibly impressive. To take it and put it front and centre, to build your people strategy and your vision around it, I think is a very bold move.
But we're not there yet, you know, because I think it's a constant thing, you know. I don't think there's ever a point when you go, it's a bit like learning, you know. I often say, and this kind of stuff, I'm not an expert, and the point when I suggest or think I'm an expert is something is the point that I stop learning, and the point that I stop learning is pretty critical. So you know, I don't want to stop learning. So there's always that sense that you can't just do it and go, there it is, everyone, we've done it. There's the culture.
Success.
Fantastic.
Finished. We've done
it. You know, our work is done here, because it's constantly evolving and it's constantly changing and it's constantly moving. So I think it's an ongoing piece of work. It's a bit like continual improvement. Continual improvement does what it says on the tin. It's about improving continually. It's obvious.
And that's not about changing these.
It's not changing.
That's about just pushing the standard.
Yeah, and constantly striving to achieve what you want to achieve. And you can't be without a destination. There's got to be a point when you can see that you're going to get somewhere, because otherwise it's always never. So I think we can get there, and there are different measures that we use and that we look at to see the extent to which we have got there. You know, there's 6 pillars in the strategic plan, and one of those pillars is an exceptional staff experience, engagement, and satisfaction. So it's right there. It's embedded right there within it. It's overt. It's blatant. You know, and again, there's nothing. Lots of organisations do this. It's what's behind that, and I think it's back to that. Just what does it feel like to be here? because people will say that's great. You can say that an exceptional staff experience and staff satisfaction is important to you, but it doesn't feel like that. I don't believe it. So I think the openness is important in terms of delivering that. So people do come to me, to their line managers. There are lots of routes through where people can go and say, actually, this isn't quite right. And I think and I hope we're responsive to that and we listen. The important thing as well with things like that is that sometimes there's things that people want to change that you just can't. And my point always is, if I can't, I'll say I can't, but I'll say why I can't.
Which builds authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be an overused phrase, but it's something that is really, really important to me. And I think, and as humans, we're often much cleverer than we think we are at seeing through a lack of authenticity. Most people intrinsically see through it.
Their gut feels.
So you can tell when somebody's genuine and authentic, and when something means something to them. And hopefully people see that this stuff means a lot to me, because I genuinely believe that if we continue to strive to get this right, that we'll just be an amazing organisation to work for.
And I think you've embedded that. I genuinely think you've embedded that into what neatly comes into your employee value proposition. I think people can sense how much you care by how much you're putting on it front and centre, by how much you're pushing through, how much time you're spending in the organisation to recognise its pattern of behaviours and then to implement stuff. So EVP is employee value proposition. It's essentially what Barnet Southgate offers its staff. And so what are the top 3 things you think you offer to people that want to come and work here and be part of this amazing culture and part of this amazing project that you put together?
So we've done a lot of work on that, and I've put a lot of energy behind this, and we started off kind of defining what our EVP is, and moved that to what we've called an employee pledge. Same thing, we just call it something slightly different. Again, I think it's a more accessible phrase for everybody to kind of, okay, I get what that is, and it's a commitment that we're making to staff, and it's a commitment we're making to staff who are here or who want to come and join us. And I think more and more over the last few years, for a range of reasons, it's become increasingly incumbent upon organisations to sell themselves. So recognising that when you get 3, 4, 5, 6 candidates in the room for a vacancy at whatever level that vacancy is, there's a very good chance that they're reasonably happy where they are now. They're just looking for the next stage of their career. There's a very good chance that there are other opportunities either open to them at that moment in time or just around the corner. So it's really important, if you're going to attract and retain talent in a difficult environment, that your organisation becomes attractive to those people. And that's really, really important to me. So the employee pledge is part of a suite of activity, if you like, around that we're working on and still trying to get right, still trying to get better. We haven't got the model here that everybody needs to come and have a look at. We're just committed people desperately trying to get things right and do our very, very best all of the time.
And recognising that the world of employment has changed.
Absolutely. Really recognising
it's
changed.
A two-way street. People do not need a job at Barnet Southgate. They want a job here. And so your employee pledge is about recognising and meeting people and saying, I want you to work here. I want you to come into this process and I want you to understand us.
Absolutely, and if you do, this is what you can expect. And your question was, what are the 3 main things? I haven't got it open in front of me, so there's some words on paper somewhere. But the genuine element of that is that our guiding principles are important to this. So you can come and work. What we commit to is, if you come and work at Barnet Southgate College, you'll work in an environment that lives those guiding principles, and I won't repeat them. So you can expect that, and you can expect to have a voice if you see that not happening. So you're not done to on a day-to-day basis, you're part of something. So that's important. Continual access to meaningful, personalised impactful learning and development opportunities are really, really important. And we commit to that, and we try and create space for that for people. And we try to give various tools that are available to people to develop their practice. We've put a lot of energy into that around the craft of teaching, learning, assessment, all of that sort of thing. And I think we're continuing to try and do more on that for some of our business support teams, so that we provide them with, again, very genuine, meaningful, accessible, personalised learning opportunities, so they can continue to develop their practice and move forward. So those are two things. The third thing is really about recognising the individual, and acknowledging and accepting that everybody is going to bring a new perspective to conversations. Everybody's going to bring a new idea for what we need to do better and what we need to do next. And I think and hope as an organisation we create various avenues for that voice to be heard. And again, we'll continue to try and be better at it. So it's about the individual and about recognising what they bring, their starting point, working with each individual to develop them as individuals within this organisation. And also as part of that, further contributing to the sector in general. So I think, again, this is something that it's an interesting nuanced thing, because some people take it as what you're trying to get rid of me, but actually I'm happy if people come here and develop their practice, develop their skills, build their confidence as individuals at whatever level they're in the sector, and then if there are no vacancies to move up here and they go elsewhere, that's a success. Yes. For me, and I celebrate that success. And I think that's, again, it's not unique, but it's genuine here, that if people want to develop, we put energy into that. But when you do that, you have to accept that people are going to grow while they're with you. And when they grow, they're likely to move on. And you have to accept that. But while they're here, you get such amazing things from people.
You've covered a load there. You've covered as to why people come here. You've covered as to why people stay here. You've got, to me, what sounds like a well-crafted EVP that deals with humans as humans. And as an organisation of your size and scale, that's incredibly impressive to have captured a system and put in place a team that recognises each person from where they are and where they come from. If there was one thing that you would do better that you could offer your employees, what would it be?
So we've done a lot of work on what that employee pledge is. So the content of it, I don't think there's anything at the moment that jumps out and goes, I'd add that to the list. Mm. And there's stuff in there which is important, but potentially it's stuff, whether that's gym membership and all of those kind of things. So I don't think there's anything that's missing off the list. But what do we need to do better with it it's the extent to which, to the very last person, they feel it and we deliver it. And that's tough. But that's the bit for me, when we deliver on it.
It's your 3-hour-a-week cleaner that comes in and only does Sunday nights, right?
Yeah.
Do they feel Barnet Southgate College?
Yeah.
Do they feel
Yeah.
part of it and contribute to it?
Yeah. And people feeling, I talk, and being proud is one of our guiding principles. Celebrate, and the sentence under that is that we celebrate the great things that we do here. But actually, behind that, I want everybody to feel really proud of their contribution to Barnet Southgate College. And there's an important thing in there. That's not being proud of Barnet Southgate College. That's important. But if people are proud of their contribution to it, then all of their reward triggers are hit.
Yeah.
And they feel good. And they want to come in the next day.
You're on a mission to eradicate the Sunday scaries.
Yeah,
You've got to come to work on a Monday.
Absolutely.
And so EVP, for me, you've already kind of talked about your individualistic approach where you look and can see each person. To you, does EVP change over time? Does it adapt to the workforce? Does it adapt to the locality? How do you see that changing, and how do you see the word work changing over the next 5 years?
I think it does change, and we only need to look at the last 5 years to see the extent to which that's changed rapidly, and I think the expectations of employees of organisations has shifted, and that's going to continue. Of course, it is, and it's not new, but the continual developments in terms of technology and innovation and digital technologies and all of that sort of thing that we're having to navigate and navigate massive opportunities and then trying to navigate the possibilities and what that means for you as an organisation is huge. So all of that's going to continue to change, and people's expectations will change with that. But with all of that change happening, the constant for leadership is people. So I keep coming back to that. So people's expectations will change. They will want to have access to technology. They will want, to have all of that sort of thing. But I think we need to make sure that we look after, develop, care for every individual in the organisation. And that doesn't mean that, people just kind of swan around doing what they want, because we've got a vision. We've got goals, we've got things that we want to achieve, but I want people to be able to feel that they can make a genuine contribution to that. So what's likely to change in the next 5 years? I think this sense of the importance of me as an individual and how the organisation contributes to my life is maybe going to become more and more important, and recognising that there is a life as well as work, and actually as an organisation and as an institution, we're only a part of people's lives. We are not their lives. And what we want to be is a really positive part of that life for everybody.
What you said there is work-life balance in a more complex manner than just letting people turn up when they want to leave when they want. It's recognising that people will want to, one, feel good about the work they do, to do work slightly more on their terms so that they can balance that against living a normal life or a life of their choosing. And I think colleges have always been a place to recognise that, where people come and they get something back, then they get to give something back, and they get to feel good about the work that they do. And what you also said is that you're going to provide the platform for modern technologies. You're going to bring your offering up to date every time something new happens to meet the employee where they are. And I think that's hugely powerful. And I agree with you. I don't think it should be static.
And that, just listening to that there has just made me think of the real importance of trust. And again, easy word to chuck out. But I think more and more employees want to be trusted by the organisation that they work for, by their peers and by their managers and by leaders. And that's something that's really important to us. And what I mean by that, people come in here, every single person comes in here every single day with the intention of doing a good job. And if you start from that point, then you've got a level of trust straight away.
And you begin to empower.
And empowerment is really important.
You can then empower. Without trust, what are you empowering? You're empowering negative behaviours. You're empowering poor practice.
And empowerment is, it's really important to us as an organisation. And again, as part of our strategy, we did a huge consultation on defining our core purpose. And again, whilst I've talked about the guiding principles and all that, and there isn't an expectation that people can memorise these and recite them at the drop of a hat, we tried to make our core purpose something that was so simple, but also really clear that people can get behind, so that you almost can. And we'll misquote it a bit, but and the reason I mention that is that empowerment's in there. So what we say is that at Barnet and Southgate College, our core purpose is to change lives, empower individuals, and connect communities.
Change lives,
empower individuals, and connect communities. And there's so much in that, in a very, very simple statement. And everything we do should drive back to that. And the interesting thing is, that's not just about changing the lives and empowering individuals from a student perspective, it's also about staff.
So Neil, we're going to move on to the final part, which is all about leadership, which is all about you. So we're going to stop talking about Barnet and Southgate, and we're going to talk solely on your views on leadership and where you've come from. So how would you describe your leadership style?
I'm conscious of just throwing out lots of potential cliches, but I'm genuinely collaborative. There are brilliant people in this organisation, and my job is to tap into their brilliance and enable them to have a voice and to contribute and to make things happen and to change things for the better. Collaborative is really, really important. I think I'm value driven, and my own personal moral compass plays a big part here. And if I see things that don't sit well, then that triggers a response in me. So I think those values and how we do things and how we behave are quite important to me. I'm ambitious for the organisation, and that drives what I do and how I do it. And that's genuine for the organisation, And when I see people, students, staff, doing things that are brilliant and amazing, that just kind of fills me with joy. So I think that drives my style. So I look out for brilliant stuff. I'm constantly on the lookout for brilliance.
You've missed something there, I think. I think anyone listening to this would say that you're incredibly passionate. And
I think I've had that kind of energy and passion, all the way through my career, because there's something about as a starting point as a teacher. My dad was a teacher. I was raised on further education. My dad taught accounts at Sandwell College for his entire career. So I was surrounded by it. I remember sitting in the staff room with him and that sort of thing. And then in my sort of early 20s, I decided, right, okay, I need a stable job in my life now. I'm going to go and train to teach. And I went and trained to teach in further education. So I did a postgraduate certificate in post-16 education, because I knew it was FE that I wanted to be in. So there's something about FE that's kind of in me, and I knew there was something in it for me. And then you go into teaching, and what happens in teaching is that you've got a daily reward coming back to you from those young people. And yes, it's challenging, and yes, it's hard, and it's become increasingly hard as the years go on. And the work that our teachers do here is just phenomenal on a day-to-day basis. But because not every student comes to you ready to learn and wanting to learn and eager and, oh, come on, what I'm going to lap it up. Part of our job is to enable them to learn, motivate them to learn. So you get that constant reward, and I've had that constant reward through my career, and seeing it around with my dad, experiencing it myself, and then you find yourself moving up, because as often happens, people go, oh, you're quite good at that. Come and do this next thing. But then I've constantly learned and constantly developed, and I've learned through other people and through observing other people, and I've learnt through seeing other people that I don't think do it the way that I think is right, but I've learnt from that, and I've learnt from just having brilliant people around me. So that passion, I suppose, just comes out of that constant thirst to learn, to develop, and to challenge myself and to do something new. The downside of that is I'm always looking for the next thing, and people around me are going, whoa, where's he going now?
Yeah, but it's not the next thing, right? It's actually, how can I do a better job for this college?
Yeah.
How can I make, in my role, how can I make this place better?
Yeah.
It's not a next thing, it's not a new thing, it's how do I make this the best place to work? So which one of those leadership principles you've talked about there, which one stands out the most as something that you think really defines you to your people and to the people that come here?
I would like to think that I'm perceived to be genuinely authentic in what I say, and therefore what I do. The drive, the passion, the things that I talk about, and you're right, the desire to continually do better for the organisation, that drives me, and that's because there's a genuineness in that, because I think we've got an amazing opportunity in further education to change lives, to empower people and to connect communities. And I really want to be able to continually do that, and continue to do that in the very best possible way that we can, in what are really complex and challenging and difficult and changing environments continually. But that's exciting for me.
Yeah, but you're also being honest yourself, right? And I think what I notice when engaging with you in any capacity is that you put the organisation first. You put the values of the organisation first. You put them ahead of your own time. I speak to you at 7 o'clock on a Friday. I hear from you at 6 o'clock in the morning as you're driving to work. They're not the actions of an unauthentic leader. You truly care deeply about the college.
No, it's true, but also there's an element of that kind of doesn't matter, because what matters is in that moment when somebody needs an answer, needs a solution, needs me, or needs anybody in the organisation, that they get that. And I don't mean that we're constantly available, but we all need to show up for each other, I think, in an organisation. And coming back to your question earlier, what's changing in the kind of world of employment? I think it's that sense that that there's a security in employment beyond just having a job and getting paid at the end of the month. That's important. It's vital. And, people have got to make a living, and that's continued to be a challenging environment for many. But actually, I want to be able to connect on a humanistic level with people, and I think that's important for me as well. Is people just need to feel that I'm genuine and I'm authentic. I keep coming back to that.
I'm going to ask you a question here, and it's quite an important question. And it's what do you think people mean when they say visible leadership?
I use this phrase a lot because we're across 4 campuses, and I'm always absent. And that's really difficult for me because I don't want to be that person, and that's just a reality of you can only be in one place. You can only be one place at a time, but that's why we've got leadership at all different levels. So I think there needs to be that sense of the leadership of Barnet and Southgate College is a broad thing. It's not narrowed down to one individual, so that's important. But equally, I recognise, acknowledge, and take my responsibility very seriously. The visibility from the perspective of me is that I'll take the long way round to, go and get some copying from somewhere. I'll take the long way round to go and see somebody in their office. I'll make the effort. I'm fidgety as well, so I don't sit for too long. I'll make the effort to get up and go out.
And your office is downstairs, right? In the front.
And recently moved that office to downstairs. Very open, very visible, and people do. They'll knock on the thing and wave and just say hi, and that's important. But equally, they see it when it's empty.
So I've got an interesting theory here, and it's the theory that visible leadership doesn't mean pounding the halls. It doesn't mean being out there, being seen. It means people feeling like they can connect with you. It means they know Neil, and maybe they don't know Neil personally, but they know what he stands for and they know who he is. Visible doesn't need to mean seeing someone, it means feeling someone.
Yeah.
And I think you've embedded that, whether that was accident design, incredibly cleverly, through your values. I really think that is the presence of a strong leader.
But I think also, and I've had to work on this because I've always been a bit, well, you don't need, I don't need to kind of reveal anything about me, but actually, I'm flawed. I'm human. We're all flawed, and I get stuff wrong, and I do things wrong, and I'll miss something, and I don't know the answer to stuff, and I'm really open about that because I think that's really important, and that's why that kind of diverse thinking around the table in anything is really important. So I think you're right. It's not necessarily about oh here he is, I can see him walking along there, but it is the fact that actually I recognise Neil, I recognise what he stands for, but more importantly, I actually believe in him, and I kind of trust him to lead the organisation, and that's a huge thing for me to ask for. Trust me, everyone. But also, I think there's an important part of when people do say any chance, you do your absolute best to say yes.
Yes, even if it means fitting it in.
Can you pop and see this? Can you pop and do this? Somebody asked me to pop and talk to a group of students, and yeah, absolutely. I would have liked to have got to it sooner than I did, but I did it. Our students are doing an exhibition of this. They're doing this. Can you pop and can you come and see them? Can you come and talk to them? Can you come and say hello? Yes, needs to be the answer as much as possible, because when people ask you to show up,
you need to
try and show up.
Did you learn this from someone? Is there a role model, or is there an individual that stands out that you've grabbed this from? Because this seems almost visionary in its approach.
I don't think it's visionary at all. I think it's just recognising the importance of celebration, collaboration, and reward. We all want some sort of reward and recognition from people. We
do.
And we can all sit and overanalyze our childhood and did we? But for whatever reason, That's really important to me, and sometimes I need it more than I should, you know. But I think because I recognise that, I believe that that's a bit of it's human nature. So actually, for me to genuinely recognise that when somebody does something that's great, it doesn't take a lot of effort to get up off your chair, and instead of sending an email, which sometimes you have to do, but if you can get up off your chair and walk to their desk and go, I heard yesterday that you did this last week. That sounds brilliant, thank you. And then leave. There's something in that. And it's not going to change their world or make their day.
But it will. But that's not true.
But it's important.
It will. That will make people's days. The little acts, the small acts of kindness.
So, no, you're right. I think they do. And I've said that. Don't underestimate. I'll say that to colleagues here. Don't underestimate the value and the importance and the impact of that. The impact of, as you pass somebody in the corridor, just stopping and having a brief conversation with them. You know, the impact of when you ask somebody, are you okay? And they go, yeah. To go, are you really okay? You know, just that extra level of care makes a difference. So those sort of things are important. And I don't think I've necessarily got it from any particular role model, because, but again, as I've touched on, you know, I've taken the opportunity to meet with and to talk to so many people, and I try when I talk to people to make the conversation meaningful in some way. But you do find that sometimes you just connect. You connect with individuals, and I learn. You know,
lifelong learning
all the time, and I learn by seeing things that people do brilliantly, and I learn by seeing things that people maybe don't do so well, and I go, I'm going to try and do lots of that and none of that.
So what not to do and what to do.
Yeah, and there isn't an individual person necessarily, because if I start talking about individual names, I'm going to miss out so many people that have influenced me and motivated me and inspired me and given me the opportunity to be as fortunate I am to do what I do. And there's lots of people that have done that to me, and some of them have been people who've just given me that. You know, sometimes you need that push. You know, I remember somebody saying to me once, Neil, this is the time to get out of your comfort zone. Okay, we're giving you an opportunity to go over there and do that. I really think you should go and do it.
Pushing you harder. So a round robin thank you to everyone that you've had a conversation with, because I imagine you've had, must be hundreds of conversations at this point with hundreds of leaders.
Yeah, and I've reported to brilliant people who, as I say, have inspired me and who I've learnt from all the way. And if nothing else, just for anybody, and it's easy and it's cliched again, but just take the learning from the things. And do you know what I learn? I'm very self-aware. So, and I get things wrong. And I'll go, whoa, I didn't kind of do that right. I got that conversation wrong. I messaged that really badly, or I missed this out, or I didn't have the conversation I should have had with that person yesterday. And I'll do something about that, and I'll learn from it and try and do better next time.
So do you think this culture, this mission, this project you've been on, is that like your most recent development opportunity? Did you take it by the horns and then turn it into well, it's not a qualification, right? But it's impactful. Is that your thing that you're doing at the minute? Would you see it like that?
Probably, yeah. I mean, you know, as I say, I do try and challenge myself in ways, but again, not just for the sake of it, but in a way that. And I don't overthink all of this stuff. I think it just happens, you know. I think it just happens.
Makes it real. Makes it it's something easier to embed if it's in. So they call them intrinsic values. So the reason that you go out to all of the people within the organisation, you bring everyone in, is because that is lived experiences. It becomes the lived values of Barnet Southgate. And if this is why you can't prescribe them, this is why you have to listen, and this is why you have to have hundreds, and then you have to distill it down. Because if you just say what you think you want to be, you end up unauthentically pushing something into an organisation, right? I'd love to tell you that I go to the gym every morning, but I don't, right?
Likewise.
And I'd love to tell you that I got it right every time, and I always did. I was almost inhuman in my approach, but I'm not. I'm a real person, and when you translate this back into your organisation, you will feel it. So there are loads of people coming through FE at the minute. Lots of people on a progression route that are trying to be the best they can be. Mm-hmm. What's your advice to future leaders that want to get somewhere in further education?
Be bold and be brave. There's always stuff you don't know. And that's been my hesitation at various points, is I don't know enough. And you look at people that you report to, and I kind of go, I could never be that. But you're never going to be somebody else. You're only ever going to be you, and there will always be gaps in stuff. So don't be afraid of the gaps, because that'll stop you taking the leap. So take the leap. Do your best to learn on the way, in the run up, and then when you've jumped, learn everything you possibly can at that point. But also acknowledge with the people around you that you've got gaps, and I think that's really important. So that would be my first bit of advice, and the other bit would be, there are thankfully lots of opportunities to develop and to learn within the FE sector. And some of that is about the openness and willingness, I think, and that's what I've found. Other principals and chief execs, if you knock on their door and go, can I come and talk to you? Can I come and learn stuff from you? Can I come and just explore what you're doing? People go, yeah, of course, because, we all recognise that it's
hard.
It is a bit. You
feel a bit lonely in here. So say yes to opportunity.
So take the opportunity, take the leap, acknowledge and lean into the stuff that you don't know, but don't let that hold you back, and take opportunities to learn and develop, because they're out there.
Okay. And as the world develops, we've talked about this, the world of work is changing, the world of everything around us, right? AI is impacting everything that we do. But what challenges do you think a college leader is going to face in the near term?
The advent of technology is without a doubt a change. I think the expectations of students continue to change and shift, and therefore you need to be able to respond and react to that. And that's always going to be a challenge. And that's societal shifts as well. It's not just about educational, changes in education and pedagogical practice. So there's something about being ready as a leader to enable your organisation to constantly pivot. And that, as I say, is around the expectations of your students. We're continually shifting and changing. Policy shifts sometimes too frequently and too quickly. But again, there's nothing new in there. It's that thing that if there's one thing you can always guarantee, it's that something's going to change, and change is constant, that sort of thing. So you need to be ready for that. But I come back to really people. I had the opportunity to talk to some of our business studies students a number of weeks ago as part of one of their units, and I did a session with them. And one of the things I said in that session was, I said to them, give me a business or an organisation that doesn't rely in any way upon people. And people were coming up and thinking, well, what about sole traders? And I'm like, yeah, but the sole traders got the products that they need people to engage with, and if people don't engage with them, they can't sell their products, and therefore they haven't got a business. So we couldn't come up with anything, and I'm sure there will be, but it was just an interesting exercise.
I don't think there is.
And so I keep coming back to that, and more moving into the future, if we're going to be successful in further education, but in anything really, we've got to be able to connect with people on a humanistic level. We've got to be able to get the best out of people. Really easy phrase, very, very hard to do. And we've got to be able to create the environment where people can be happy, healthy, and brilliant in their jobs.
Neil, thank you so much for bringing me down here today, for talking to me about not only your journey in FE, your journey at Barnet Southgate, the project that you've been through to get to where we are today, and to share that with me so honestly and so authentically. I'm truly, truly grateful. So thank you for your time. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, brilliant. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.